Jake Paul has called out Dana White on how much he is paying UFC fighters. So you can either go to Jake Paul's Twitter account, or I'm sure you've seen it circulating around social media. A long statement here. I'll take out some snippets of it, where Jake says, "In my third fight, I made more in total pay than any fighter in UFC history. Maybe it's time to pay your fighters their fair share. No wonder they all want to get into boxing. Pay them their fair share. Hurry up and make Jones versus Ngannou $10 million purse for each guy plus pay-per-view. Why are UFC fighters so underpaid versus boxers?" So this is a rare time where Jake Paul's making a lot of sense, and I see some people out there saying that it wasn't him that crafted this tweet. It was one of his managers. I forget the name. Can't know who actually wrote this, if it was him or
The
somebody
Triller
else.
guy, right? That's who you're talking about.
Yes. But either way, he's bringing up, fighter pay, which has been a hot topic now for a while. You've got a lot of people talking about doing crossover fights. Usman, right, talked about maybe hanging him up and then mentioned a crossover fight. You have John Jones and Ngannou trying to work that out, where it looks like now Dana's going to go with Derek Lewis versus Ngannou. I mean, it's a messed up world when Jake Paul is just talking straight sense about the situation, right, Drake?
Yeah, totally. What is 2021, Pat? I don't know anymore. Agreeing with Jake Paul, never thought I'd see the day, but no, yeah, he presents whoever using his Twitter account, presents a lot of points that you can't really argue with. This should not be the case where this goofy, cringy, way try hard, too serious YouTuber wannabe boxer guy is able to make a significant amount more money in an area that I hate to say he has an expertise, but not his area of expertise, at least for what we know him for, or those who do know him for, right? Compared to real, legitimate, talented athletes at the highest level. And it's quite frankly embarrassing. And it's becoming less of a secret, if it was ever really a secret. I mean, to people in the know who follow the sports a lot closer may know that this is just kind of how it is. But it's ridiculous that we are even at a point where he has to mention this, the guy who is able to do it. But it's kind of nice, though, admittedly, for that person to be like, yo, man, what's going on? I see a lot of, holes in what you're saying here. And it's not like he's fighting for the fighters necessarily in this particular argument. What he's saying right here, not like, I don't want to put him on that team necessarily. I don't feel like that's what it is just from what we know about him, but rather than stirring up shit as he does. But again, it's hard to disagree with what he's saying and kind of hopefully bring this to light more, because unfortunately he is a pretty well-known, recognizable name now, and a lot of people follow him, a lot of people who don't even fucking care about combat sports whatsoever. So it's good. It's actually pretty good that he said this, honestly.
Yeah, and it highlights again a problem in the sport that we've known for a long time now, and shows, I will never forget the look on Ben Askren's face after he got knocked out, just flat knocked out, and then he's walking in the back. It seems pretty happy. And people were trying to figure out, like, why is he kind of happy? It's like, well, because this was more of just like a gimmick thing for him, and he made more money than he did when he was fighting in the UFC for it, right? It's a pretty ridiculous situation. And to get a little businessy here, the issue that really fighters face now, and that is an uphill battle, and going to be an uphill battle for until they get this resolved, if they ever do, is you now have a situation where businesses only grow to their limits, right? They constantly spend. It's not like the UFC is sitting on a pile of cash and then they just have like $600 million in the bank, and oh, okay, we're just keeping that for ourselves, and it's just all over here in this pile of cash. No, they're not liquid at all. They are heavy in debt from when Endeavor bought them out. Endeavor is now, again, trying to buy out the rest of the UFC, only leveraging even more debt. What that does is it puts these limits where fighter pay is viewed purely as a cost to investors and to owners. And so when you're struggling to pay off your debts, which Endeavor is, not so much the UFC. The UFC is doing fine, but now they're part of Endeavor's portfolio, and the UFC is really their own only like revenue generating business right now. And you're struggling to pay off your debts, you can't raise costs. And you will go, investors would kill you for raising costs. Internally, executives would be like, "That, what are you talking about?" So you now have the fighters versus any and all investors. And mind you, when the Endeavor IPO happens, that will become the public. It's going to be this uphill struggle for them to get any changes from that 18 to 20% fighter revenue that's been locked in for so long. And this is just kind of lunacy, where you see Jake Paul saying like, yeah, I make more money than all these other guys, and it doesn't make sense, because why would you not do Jones versus Ngannou, pay him $10 million each in pay-per-view points? It seems so simple from, a layman's eyes, like, why not? I know you're making a ridiculous amount of money, but that money is already spent, and that's the problem. That's really what this now becomes, is capitalism versus the UFC fighters.
Could be a documentary.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's just crazy. Like, I don't know. I guess that then begs the question, like, what can we know how Dane is going to respond? He calls he did it last night, where he says that they're full of shit and like that. But the more and more that it does get brought out, and with the antitrust lawsuit and all that stuff, with Judge Bulware and all that, Pat, I'm probably not getting everything completely accurate there, but as that continues to come out and whatnot, it's like, how much longer can Dana keep up kind of? Is facade a fair word to use? I mean, you tell me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a. Here's the thing: he'll never break that unless he's forced to, and even then, I don't think he'll break it. I think he will go down. Even if the ship was going down, he'd stand there and say, like, "This is unfair. We've always been fair fighters." I fully expect that. But
right.
I mean, the antitrust lawsuit would be massive if it actually moved forward to the point where, we get some rulings on some things, specifically, fighter contract lengths, because that's really what's holding people up from just jumping ship to go to another promotion, the highest bidder, things of that nature. But something that was highlighted with this entire antitrust lawsuit case is, last September, we were told the judge was going to have his written ruling on fighter class certification, had a whole meeting about it, was basically, yeah, I'm leaning this way, it's probably going to happen. And we are here now almost in May with no update whatsoever. And the legal process itself, it's going to get appealed. It's going to go up to the next court, who then, depending on how that's ruled, I'm pretty sure it's going to get appealed again to go to the highest, Supreme Court kind of thing here. And it takes a long time for things to get through the court system. I mean, this started back in 2015. We're on 2021, and we're just looking at class certification. We're not even looking at whether or not the UFC is at fault for these things.
Right.
So
snail's pace.
Yes. So it's, the only thing that could speed this up is if fighters unionize, which now you have a government, Biden got rid of the old NLRB head who was very anti-union, basically forced him to resign, was like, hey, either you resign or I'm going to fire you, and kind of made some sweeping changes there where, Leslie Smith was on Unlocking the Cage with Jimmy Smith and mentioned that the Biden administration is now asking people whose claims were denied by the NLRB in the past 4 years or so to resubmit claims. So I believe she's going to resubmit her claim about wrongful firing when the UFC basically paid her to just say, hey, your contract's ended, when she didn't get a fight. So this, leads to basically unionizing is the only way to really speed this up. And if fighters don't come together and form a union, you got to wait for the court system, and the court system could be another decade. So in the meantime, Dana and Endeavor is going to make a bunch of money, and fighters won't be able to do much about it. It's just, unless they strike or something, right? I don't know what else you do.
How badly do you want Ngannou versus Jones, everybody? How badly do you want it? Come together, make it happen.
Yeah, well, it doesn't help. I mean, that's the perfect example. It doesn't help that Jones goes on Twitter, talks about, he's not asking for that much, and Derek Lewis immediately comes in and says,
Right.
"Oh, I'll fight him for $8 million. What are you talking about?" It's like, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's sad, ending. And it's never ending unless fighters come together. And the closest we've seen is probably Project Spearhead with Leslie Smith and Cajun Johnson, I believe, was the other member of that team, who they actually tried to get cards signed. They did that. You've had, the MMAFA. You've had the group with, like, is that the MMAFA? The one with George St. Pierre and Dillashaw and Cerrone that lasted like a day and they never did anything. Right. It's tough. It's a very strong uphill battle. And again, the consequences are still unknown. Even if you win and you say, yep, UFC had monopoly power, you now have to limit contracts. You now have to pay fighters closer to an equal share, all this stuff. What does the UFC look like then? Because, that would change the landscape. And with Endeavor in as bad a shape as it is right now, if they don't come out of this and pull out of it where they can say UFC is just one of their main revenue generating portfolio companies instead of the only thing holding them together right now, what does that all look like? Because then you're looking at bankruptcy, spinning off. It becomes this giant mess. So
good fun.
Yeah.
Good fun. Thanks, Jake Paul.
Yes. Yeah. So
for
good
once.
job. Yeah. Good job on Jake Paul illuminating this, but it's a problem that's only going to get worse for fighters, unfortunately. So that's kind of where we're stuck. Let us know your thoughts on this as well. If you feel that fighters are getting underpaid, what do you think about Jake Paul calling Dana White out like this? Do you think Dana's going to respond? Do you think it's going to, build to have more UFC fighters try and make that crossover to Triller to, get paid and fight Jake Paul and get the big money fight? Let us know your thoughts on this entire situation, as well as fighter pay and anything we've covered. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, bell notification. And let's hope that courts get faster.
Speed it up, boys.
Yeah.